I'm Susan Caruso, the founding director of Sunflower Creative Arts, and you are here with us at the Sunflower Bridge podcast, where we talk about being with children.
And my name is Lindsey Mills. I'm the co-creator of Sunflower Bridge. Take a breath and smile with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thinking about taking those breaths in, I think it's all the more important now at this time of the year, at this time in the world. There are so many things to think about and to be concerned about. I know that for me, I'm doing a lot of breathing in courage and exhaling peace out into the world and love.
Good.
And it really does start with our families. The whole idea of what do we do when there's conflict? Because there's always going to be conflict. There are always going to be people that disagree with each other, that come on different sides. Mm-hmm. And so how do we change that in the world? And we're trying to change that from each family that we work with, each child that we work with. Ourselves, of course, first. And so I think that learning to talk to each other and listen to each other, and not just listen while we're waiting to say what we're going to say, but really deeply listen so that we understand who the other person is and try to understand. So talk, listen, and understand. It's a chant that we do with our Roots and Shoots Club, the Jane Goodall's Kids Activist Group. We've had a club for many years. It's at least 14 or 15 years. Yeah,
it's a wonderful weekly meeting where children of many ages gather and do acts of service and go in nature together and really cultivate this attitude of peace and understanding.
Yeah, it's a big part of it. They're doing projects around people and animals and the environment, and their own projects. So it's local stuff. And we have a gigantic peace dove called Sunny Love, the peace dove, that we take out to events. And on International Day of Peace, we fly her. And one of the chants that we do is talk, listen, understand, kids for peace. And it's kind of as easy as that.
Yeah.
We fly Sunny Love in parades and things, and it is
Can you tell us how that came to be?
The chant?
Sunny Love, the peace dove?
So it's that's the reason why we have a Roots and Shoots group, because I went to see Jane Goodall at a local university.
Oh, wow.
She was there. And there were children. Our group is 5 to 12-year-olds. I think this was around the same age group. And they, she's there in this big gymnasium or something. And she said, we have, the local Roots and Shoots club is here, or a couple of them. And they were flying these homemade peace dove puppets.
Oh.
And I saw that and just cried my eyes out, and it is so moving. And of course, Jane Goodall is an ambassador for peace. Mm-hmm. And she talked about how in Africa, they started these groups, and the very first group decided on the International Day of Peace that they were going to make a puppet, and it was large, and ours is large. And so on, I think it's the 20th or 21st of September is the International Day of Peace. And so these doves fly all over the world.
Wow.
So if you look it up, Roots and Shoots, Day of Peace, then you see it, by the Eiffel Tower, on the top of Kilimanjaro, on London Bridge, and
how wonderful.
all over the world. So I saw that and I thought we have to do that.
Yeah.
And so we did make our own. We formed a group of mixed-age children, and we created a puppet. They did it themselves. We had chicken wire, and we had old sheets, and and we, stuffed, made a head and a beak and painted her and formed her, and she hangs out in our storage unit in between flights. But it's amazing, and it sort of takes people's breath away because the wingspan is bigger than this room. Sunny Love would have a hard time spreading her wings in this studio, and so when she is flying, and so it takes probably one to hold the head post, and then there's 3 or 4 people on the wings, and then a big tail in the back, and so it's very breathtaking. So you can imagine in parades where there are all kinds of bands and electronic things and everything, we come with Sunny Love the Peace Dove and usually some lights on us, and the kids are chanting, wishing everybody a peace and all of that, but chanting, talk, listen, understand, kids for peace. Yeah, and they do talk, listen, understand.
Oh, with the hand
kids
motions.
Kids for peace. And then they put
fabulous.
up the peace sign. So of course, we need to start right there with our own families. How do we have that peaceful communication, those peaceful communication skills? And it's not easy.
Yes, because as you said, there will always be conflict. There will never be a day in the world without conflict of one kind or another. And in your own life, there are going to be many moments when you don't agree with your child, when your child wants things one way and you want them another. And so I have always appreciated how at Sunflower, there is an emphasis on nonviolent communication and on listening to understand rather than to make your point, to have things your way. I think that is sort of where adults tend to go wrong in conflict resolution is, even from my own experience, there have been times when I've gone into a discussion with my hackles up.
Right.
My defenses
what you want to
up.
have. You want to change their minds.
Yes.
You are going to change their
Yes.
minds.
And I can have a lot of passion behind why I believe I'm right. And I have definitely tried that route many times, and it has never really gotten me anywhere. I have found that when I leave those conversations, there is more animosity, there is more divisiveness, and there is no understanding because I came in with my fixed position that this is what I want, and if I don't get this, I will accept nothing less. And the other person, often, if they didn't feel that way before the conversation, as soon as I start asserting my position, they change and their defenses come up. So
Yeah, so you have to have practice.
Yes.
You have to be in a conflict to understand how to work through a conflict, and there are lots of ways to do it. So to take a breath, to stop, and to in the heat of the moment to take a breath is a really important thing. To have a little bit of stillness to stop any hurting that might be going on, and to really say, wow, this is a problem. So those disagreements, and you can, at the outset, of course, with adults, you can say, you know what, we're on both opposite ends of this. Let's agree to disagree and the end of it, rather than batter each other, or to ask the questions of why do you feel that way? And in a child conflict, you're saying, what's happening here? This is a problem. Anybody have any ideas of how we can fix this, make this better? And they are so good at coming up with outlandish ideas, but they really aren't trying, I mean, they may say, no, I want it, so if it's over a toy or, usually it's over an object, something, no, I want the blue shovel. And so they're pretty much fixated on that. But if
they know the outcome that they want.
Right. They
it's
want
really
it.
Fixed.
It's like what you were saying.
Yeah.
And they're gonna get their way. And but if you take a breath and somebody holds on to that shovel, says, let me hold on to this while you figure this out. This is a problem. And so even just to identify that, there's a problem here. It's not that you're right and he's wrong. This is a problem. We need to come up with a solution. It's so much different than, okay, you disagree with me. I am going to hurt you until you're gone.
Oh, wow. It's so fascinating to me how profound this conversation very quickly becomes, because it is just that we limit our compassion, but we are taught to do that. We are taught a lot from outside messaging that this is a zero-sum game that we live in, that this world is, if you're winning, I'm losing.
Right, and that's the key thing, and that is not true.
No. Right. If we can get beyond that initial conflict, the thing that brought us to this moment, and to see that we are both human beings with relatively the same desire,
needs and desires and rights.
Yes.
And to say to try to have that empathy, or to really have the tools to even get started with that, right?
Yes.
So to
show children another way when it is often the default. At their age, at a toddler's age, when the blue shovel disagreement is happening, developmentally, they are really self-involved. They are focused primarily, everyone around them would suggest that you are the center of the universe, and that everything that you want is how it is. But at school is often when we gain exposure to, there are other people with other needs, like they want something that's different than what I want, and how do we coexist? How do we both get some of what we want?
And the communication skills and the conflict resolution skills evolve as they have practice at it. So it can be with two kids that are on the same level of having those skills. They're going to need a little bit more intervention, maybe a little bit more modeling, but it evolves. And we see from a really young age, there are some schools of thought that think that 3-year-olds can't be problem solvers. The adults have to do it for them. I totally disagree. They need the tools, and we're going to make sure, the adults are going to make sure that no hurting is going on.
Yes.
But they can, with experience, they have those tools, and they, will teach the other kids too. So it's something that is kind of different about Sunflower, for sure. Adults come in and remark how kind the children are, even, and see a conflict, and they'll say they just solved that themselves. Nobody had to come and do anything.
Yeah.
They figured it out. And so there are always lots of opportunities for that. And I think that those are the basic skills and the basic feelings that need to be understood in both parties, and for all of the conflicts that we have, for the negotiating, for the mediating. And I think that when adults solve things, and when kids don't have skills, or teenagers or middle schoolers or elementary school kids, if they don't have those basic skills, those steps of, okay, we're going to stop, take a breath, we're going to state the problem, so we agree, okay, this is what the problem is, and then look at both sides, and everybody has a moment to say how they feel, how they see the situation.
Right.
So it's negotiation, it's mediation on all those other levels.
I am still imagining this blue shovel and these two children at odds with one another, and how one way to quote unquote solve the problem would be, I'm taking the blue shovel and I guess you can't share, or
conflict removal.
Yes, right. Which breeds conflict avoidance in the future. I am guilty of doing the opposite of what I described before, where instead of going into a conflict knowing I'm right and I'm going to prove it, I'll just say, oh, I got to go. I'm going to not engage with this at all. And again, no understanding happens. So
it takes courage.
Yes,
it takes courage.
True.
It's also a little risk that, things could get heated. That's where the modeling from adults that already have this somewhat together comes into play.
Yes.
And learning from other people. But you do need to have the experience. You do need to have the models and see it. So running away or having an adult remove that conflict, no learning happens.
Yeah.
So.
I think we're all familiar with the fight, flight, freeze spectrum of responses to conflict. And I was really intrigued to learn that they added fawn to this list, and that another way that we've learned to cope as children in conflict that we really don't have a ton of control over is to surrender, is to just acquiesce to whatever the adult or the child that has more power in the situation is telling them to do. And we all have our own place where we fall on that spectrum, and the things that we learned before we had skills, as you're saying. And so we ask you to reflect in a non-judgmental way on where you fall on that spectrum, and if compassionate communication and conflict resolution wasn't modeled for you, how are you finding new examples? And how are you being kind to yourself and recognizing when things are triggering, when you're getting pulled out of your peace because of the resemblance of a situation to something from your own life?
It's a huge topic, you know, trauma and, trauma responses and all of that. And, you see pieces of that probably on a daily basis and in the world right now for sure. So where can we start? And we have to start where we are. And so think about what the compassionate communication that you are modeling for your children. When it gets tough, what do you do? Who do you turn to? Check and see if you're, just removing conflicts. Are your children having enough experience in a safe setting to learn those skills? Check out the Peace Doves with Jane Goodall's International Day of Peace. And, of course, that's what we all want. We want everyone to be safe and have those tools. And we do want everybody to be heard and listened to and cared for. Yeah.
One way that I like to bring myself back into my body, into presence, when I am having one of those moments of heightened anxiety or stress, is to do a 5 senses check. And I find this works incredibly well with young children, where you ask, what do you see right now? What do you hear right now? Is there a sound? What do you smell right now? What do you feel right now? It's a really grounding thing to just run through those senses, and remember, nothing is really the matter. That's what it comes down to for me. We can find at least enough peace in this moment to think through what the next step can be.
And to have that stillness. And as adults, we really need to find a way to be there, be in that spot.
To be solid for them.
Yeah, ourselves and them. So
thank you for listening today. We are so grateful for all of you who listen in to the podcast. To share what came up for you as you listen to our conversation, you can find us on Instagram at Sunflower Creative Arts, or you can send us an email at lindsey@sunflowercreativearts.org. Our podcast is kindly sponsored by Schweitzer Musical Productions.